Joe Biden is playing checkers while Putin is playing chess. Today we're going to talk a little bit about the Russia-Ukraine situation. Now, I've been wanting to upload a video on this topic and situation for some time, but I figured I would let the cards fall as they have until doing so I can say I told you so. In my past prep videos, I've talked a lot about Russia, China, Iran, and some of the other big players. The fact that they are absolutely going to make some moves. It's just a matter of time when. Now, and I'm not the only one. Alex Jones, many others out there have talked about this. In many situations, we've been labeled as conspiracy theorists, and we've been shadow banned, and our videos and other blog posts have been suppressed with different algorithms to try to sweep these things under the rug. Now, the West has been falling for a very long time, and we've put feelings and what feels good before what is real, before reality, what should be done, and how things should be. We can all deny reality as much and as often as we want to. However, we cannot deny the consequences of denying reality. And we're starting to see that now. It's like that old quote that Mike Tyson said, everybody's got a plan until you get knocked out. In this video, I'm going to try to speak as plainly and as simply as possible. I've taken political science classes. I'm not going to get into super deep political science jargon, nomenclature. We're going to speak as plainly as possible to make the world understand. And what you need to understand is, especially in the West, most individuals have become sheep. There's very few wolves and real leaders left in the West. Now, everybody wanted this new administration and the left in power, and they got what they wanted. However, now they're going to have to pay the consequences of getting what they wanted. One of our forefathers once said, a person who is willing to give up freedom and liberty for security deserves neither. Now, we voted in a bunch of free things. We wanted that to happen, and now we're going to have to pay the cost for that. And basically, we have a lot of weak leaders in power. And when you have a lot of weak leaders in power, you open yourself up for assault, attack, all of the above. Joe Biden is 79 years old. He's falling asleep at meetings. The person who is third in line to be the president of the United States is 81 years old, Nancy Pelosi. These people have absolute no business being in elected positions of any power, especially in regards to our defenses on any level. If somebody doesn't have the physicality to even defend themselves, what business do they have in leading armies, leading nations, making decisions with taxpayer dollars? It's absolute nonsense, but that's who was put in power. Now, I've studied a tremendous amount of military history. The U.S. president is a trust fund baby who went straight from being a trust fund baby into being a politician. He's been a politician his whole life. He has no war experience, no military experience, no business experience. Straight from trust fund politician. And then you got a couple of lawyers that went from being a lawyer into being a politician. And looking at Russia, Putin, I mean, this guy is an ex-colonel from the KGB. He has deep ties with Russian businesses. You want a warlord and or business person, probably a combination thereof, as your leader, a very strong individual at that. When you get away from that, you're going to have problems. It's very simple. Now, the Biden administration, and they're threatening retaliation with sanctions. In other words, let's write Russia some citations. Let's charge them the money to export their goods and services. That's kind of like saying, if you don't stop what you're doing, we're gonna tap you on the wrist and we're gonna put you in timeout. You better watch out now. Well, I got a news flash for everybody. There is the highest concentration of billionaires, B as in boy, billionaires in Russia. That is the highest concentration of billionaires than there is in any other country in the world. So if you think that threatening them with a little bit of money is going to scare them, intimidate them on any level, you are all living in fairyland, dream world. Now, the U.S. administration has tried to suppress law enforcement that they've taken up with that side and defunding the police and all that. And they're trying to, and pulling militaries out of certain countries, this and that. And that's all and fine if they want to do that. However, there's going to be consequences to that. Very simple. We're starting to see that now. Now, there's been just weeks and months of speculations on, is Russia going to invade Ukraine? Are they going to do it? Let me tell you all something. The moment Putin picked up his foot and took one step in physical action or even thought of mind of even thinking about taking Ukraine, the decision was done, sealed, stamped, and mailed. Done. Do you really think he would have wasted 1 minute of intimidation, of fake finesse, of even making it look like, or even a threat to invade Ukraine, if he was not actually going to do it? Now, in military, speed is an absolute necessity. Speed, quickness, super important. However, the West has become so incredibly weak and just unmotivated, the lowest testosterone in history, that he literally took all his time that he wanted. He got in no rush. Blood pressures did not rise. He simply made a decision and said, roll it out, take your time. No need for speed in this situation. And that's why there was all this speculation. Is he going to do it? Is he going to do it? It's just a matter of fact that he had no reason to get in a rush. There was no reason. Because the West is not going to do anything other than point the finger and yell and scream. Most people in this world today are all talk. Talk, all day long, every day, talk. Very few people are doers, take action. You can talk all day or even look like you have traction all day, but you may not have any action. So we're getting a hard lesson in how the world really works. People say, oh, well, this is the new world. We don't go to war anymore. We are diplomatic with our negotiations and we talk things through. Well, here's a news flash for you. Open up your history books. The world always has been, always will be, a world where, we are living, breathing, bleeding creatures. And look at the U.S., for example. We did not just vote and talk our way into becoming the United States of America? No. We fought wars, battles. We took what we wanted. We fought Spain. We fought Great Britain. We fought the French at one point. We took a lot of land from the Native Americans. Battles, wars, we take. When you want to expand territory, power, influence, control, you have to physically take it. And just because these things haven't happened for many years does not mean that they just were swept under the rug, and it's not going to happen anymore. Now, many people worry about nuclear attacks and basically countries getting into nuclear wars with each other and the world being obliterated. That's just not going to happen, and here's why. When you start getting into nuclear levels of escalations, you start eliminating people and resources. Well, the whole idea of taking territories is gaining control of resources, people, and those goods and services therein, distribution areas. If you obliterate everything and make things uninhabitable, there's nothing to control or take over. Just a barren wasteland. That's not profitable. So you're not going to see nuclear wars, because the whole idea is to take territories and take over their people and their resources. Expand your power and control. This is how it always has been, and the way it always will be. It's just been a while since we've had these types of situations. Now, we have a very weak administration and government in place in the West. Unless that absolutely changes, you are only going to see an acceleration of these situations. Now, the biggest thing is, okay, Russia's taken Ukraine, and they will absolutely take it entirely. You can guarantee that. Now, the biggest question is, which countries are they going to take next? I would argue they're going to take Lithuania, Moldova. I mean, they could take Turkey. I think all of those border states around Ukraine, giving them more access to the different seas and waterways. I think those countries are next on the list. Now, what you're also going to see is you're probably going to see China start to do the same thing, especially once they've seen Russian success with this situation. You're going to probably see them take Taiwan and maybe some other countries as well. You're probably going to see some countries in the Middle East, Iran, for example, and start to expand their territories. And I'm pretty sure Pakistan is definitely going to be making some major power moves into India. There's no question there. I think they already have. So you're going to see other countries take heed and govern themselves accordingly. And Russia's simply leading the way on this front. And as it stands in the West, I don't see any way these things are going to change. I think the leftist blue wave, the dumbing down, the sheepified society of the West has went too far, and I think it's be nearly impossible to bring it back. But one interesting fact you need to think about is in 1776, it was only about 30% of the U.S. population that participated in the revolution. Only about 30% of the population. So even though probably 70% of the people were trying to remain neutral or were loyalists or sheep, or a combination thereof, only 30% of the population got it done. So, is there still hope? Yes, I think there's still hope, but there'd have to be a complete U-turn of the way things are today. But Russia, China, all those other powers that be have been sitting back and watching the West dumb itself down, destroy itself within all these different factions. The whole idea, one of the ideas of military philosophy is divide and conquer. Well, they haven't had to do any of the dividing themselves. They've watched the West divide itself from within. I mean, the West is just not patriotic within their own countries anymore. I mean, their own governments are attacking the citizens, and the citizens are attacking themselves. And I would say that if you did not see this whole situation coming and didn't pull all your funds out of the stock market and different other areas where you're seeing massive downturns in tanking in the last few weeks, I mean, I feel sorry for you. I really do. You should have paid attention and looked at reality instead of what feels good and what you would like things to be like. I'm not being negative here. I try to be as real as I can. That's how I see the world. Sky's blue, grass is green. You cannot argue these facts. It is what it is. And moving forward, I would say put a lot of your assets into appreciable, hard assets. I would say I would not keep things in speculation, in cash, especially within the electronic financial systems, more than I'd say 3 to 6 months living expenses, because they're seeing major cyber attacks in Ukraine. And you can absolutely guarantee that if the U.S. gets involved in what the East wants to do, their agendas, you're going to see major cyber attacks in the U.S. And just because you might have 500,000, 250,000, 10 million, 100 million sitting in your cryptos, sitting in your 401k, your savings account, don't think you won't wake up one morning and all those numbers go to zero and you have nothing. So don't think that can't happen, because the way wars are waged today, cyber attacks are absolutely a certainty. Now, the moment, I think the first day Biden was in power, he shut down the Keystone Pipeline, which has a major impact on what you see when you're paying what you're paying at the pump today. Especially when the U.S. has cut most of its production and sourcing of crude oil and other things. Russia is a major provider of a lot of these natural resources that the U.S. has shut down. So when Russia is saying, or when the U.S. is saying to Russia, well, we're going to sanction you, we're going to charge you more to export your goods. Well, guess what? We get a lot of those goods. So all they're saying is, we're going to charge you so you can pass those charges more so onto our own citizens. So that's why you're seeing the price of oil, it's about to hit $100 a barrel. And natural gas, Russia will cut off all of Western Europe's natural gas supply if they haven't already. I mean, it was rising 10% a day there for a while. And they'll just shut off the pipelines indefinitely. Western Europe could absolutely freeze, and we got a couple months of cold months left. And the U.S. has to be extremely careful with getting involved. They've really painted themselves into a corner here, and they don't really have a lot of options other than to support what Russia's doing, frankly. I mean, they're only going to be hurting their own citizens. I mean, you're going to see, with this situation, you're going to see major supply chain disruptions. If the U.S. gets involved in regards to sending a whole lot of troops over, there's been talks of possible drafts being enacted again. And you're just going to see more and more supply chain issues within the U.S. because you're going to be seeing a lot going overseas to support different military operations if that happens. And this is not going to be a short situation. I mean, you're talking 3-4 years minimum on a good end. I mean, it could be a 10-year situation with what's going on. Now, I think if you see the House, the Senate, the executive branch flip in the next election, completely turn upside down, that could be a big changing factor. I think that will happen because of the situation with the inflation. I mean, they pretty much, the current parties in power, they pretty much ended whatever chance they had with these consumer prices. That completely sealed their deal. They're done. But I would say, if you have anything in the stock market, if you have a lot of cryptos, I would say, I mean, you're going to take a loss if you pull anything out now, but I got news for you. If you let it sit in there, it's only going to nosedive even further. That's just where we're at. And it could very well be that way continue to nosedive for the next 5 or 10 years is my anticipation, the way things are headed. And I would not rely on an employer for your well-being, your livelihood. You better figure out multiple sources of income and figure out how to hustle, how to survive. And I would have a rifle, a shotgun, a 4-wheel drive, know how to hunt, fish, farm, garden, know how to get by on your own if need be. If you can't go to the grocery store, if you don't have a job with you on the payroll, if your natural gas gets cut off, if your electricity gets cut off, if your local water municipality cuts your supply off, you really need to have some contingency plans in place for these. I'd have a plan A, B, C, and D. And one other special note to preppers, and that is, keep all your preparations as top secret as possible, because the more that is known about you and your preparations, the more of a target you're going to be. Very simple. And also, I would advise, have all your preparations in multiple locations. Don't have it all. Don't have all your eggs in one basket. You can have your main place, but you need to have different relay points, different rendezvous points. Very important. And keep all of this as top secret as possible. For example, a situation in Venezuela, I think it was, where they had the hyperinflation. There were many rich individuals that had a lot of preparations. For example, had self-sustaining farms in place. Well, guess what happens with a lot of those large self-sustaining farms? The government knew about them. So when hyperinflation hits, a lot of times you'll see governments and militaries move into those locations, take over those assets, and distribute them amongst the people. So all your hard work, energy, resources went into setting up all these preparations. You simply set yourself up as a target, and the government moves in and says, hey, we appreciate you setting this all up. We're going to take over now. And so it's very important that you keep these things top secret, keep them in multiple locations, stay mobile. Mobility will make you survive. So comment down below, what are your thoughts on these topics? I tried to speak as simply and as plainly as possible. Where do you think the future is headed in regards to these situations and the U.S.'s future? I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Share this video, tap the thumbs up icon, tap the bell icon, subscribe to the channel. I do thank you for watching. Have a great day.